Good morning, and this is Joshua Pearsall with Practical Christian Lessons. We are on the final chapter of Wisdom of Solomon today. Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 19. Man, I'm excited. Just a quick update on the arm. Everything mostly looks on the up and up. No soft tissue tears, no fractures. So just going to keep it slinged up for at least a few more days, depending on the pain. And doctor said ibuprofen, hot, cold. We're all good there. Just letting you guys know that. So super thankful. Praise be to God. That's the worst that happened. Wisdom of Solomon, 19. But unmerciful anger came upon the ungodly to the end, for God knew of them and their future beforehand, that they would allow your people to depart and eagerly send them forth, but then change their minds and pursue them. For you guys on the short, go to the channel to find this and the rest of our readings on Wisdom of Solomon. We'll see you in the next series. For everybody else, we're going to pick up in chapter 3. For while they were yet mourning and lamenting at the graves of their dead, they made another foolish decision and pursued as fugitives those whom they had begged and had sent away. For a deserved destiny drew them to this end, and made them forget what had happened, so they might fill up the punishment which was lacking in their torments, and that your people might attempt an incredible journey, but that they themselves might come upon a strange death. And the next is title heading is Creation Serves God. A bit important. For the whole creation in its kind was fashioned again from above to serve your commands, that your servants might be kept unharmed. The cloud was seen overshadowing the camp, and the emerging of dry land out of the water previously present, an unhindered way out of the Red Sea, and a grassy plain out of the violence of rough water, through which those sheltered by your hand passed with the whole nation, after observing marvelous wonders. For they grazed like horses, and leaped about like lambs, praising you, O Lord, who saved them. For they still remembered their sojourn in a foreign land. How instead of the birth of animals in the land brought forth small flies, and instead of things living in water the river vomited forth a multitude of frogs. Afterwards they also saw a new kind of bird. When led by their passion, they requested meats for self-indulgence. For their relief, qualls came up from the sea. The punishment of Egypt. The punishments did not come upon the sinners without previous sins in the violence of thunder, and they suffered justly because of their own evils, for they practiced in a very bitter hatred of strangers. Others did not welcome those unknown to them when they arrived, but these enslaved foreign benefactors are not only this, but there shall be a certain visitation, because they received foreigners hatefully. For after receiving them with festivals, they mistreated with terrible sufferings those who had already shared the same rights. They were also stricken with blindness, like those at the doors of the righteous man. When clothed in darkness, each sought the way through his own doors. And then God dwells with his people. For the elements combined among themselves in different ways, which can be accurately conjectured from the sight of what took place. As on a harp, the sounds of the rhythm differ in expression, while always remaining the same in sound. For land animals were changed into water creatures, and creatures that swim crossed over the land. In water, fire prevailed with its own power, and water forgot its quenching properties. Flames, on the contrary, did not consume the flesh of perishable animals that walked among them, nor was the species of immortal food capable of being melted like easily melted ice. For in everything, O Lord, you have exalted and glorified your people, and have not neglected to be present with them in every time and place. There's a lot we could talk about there. I love the Exodus story so much. I'm happy that we got to go through it here in this time of Lent through the Wisdom of Solomon, and hopefully you guys have been able to read through it on your own. It is one of those things I think it's worth going through at least once a year as the Exodus narrative. I want to focus today on the God dwells with his people, which is kind of one of the big points of the laws that you see in Exodus that are repeated again in Deuteronomy when Moses sort of retells the laws and the stories as he's about to send the people into the promised land. Levitical laws as well. It's God dwells among us, which is why we have these laws, which is why we have these rules that are put in place, is because he's a holy God. And the laws, yes, are there to teach us, to show us what sin is, as well as to teach us how to be a holy, loving, merciful people, and to teach us that God is a just God who will punish wrongness. But it's also a way to teach the people how to be holy so that God can dwell among them. Because his holiness is so great that unholiness, just being in his presence, burns, it shrivels, it dies. It suffers in his presence. So if they are to be an unholy people with him in their midst, it will simply kill them. It's a mercy for him to do this and to show them this so that they can have God with them, to talk to them, to talk through the high priest, to instruct his people, to bless his people, to protect his people. And we kind of see the very real example of that when the Philistines in 1 Samuel, the very beginning of 1 Samuel, beat the Israelites and take the ark, and then when they put it in their temple beside Dagon, the little idol of Dagon gets destroyed. The city starts to suffer. People start to die as it's in the land of the Philistines. People's wombs are shut. Like, all these terrible things just start happening to them because they have the presence of this most holy God amidst them as idolaters, as child sacrificers, as these wicked people that are not fit to be in the presence of God. So God's holiness just starts causing wrath, God's wrath upon them. And that's part of the mercy of the laws, is so that doesn't happen, so that we can have God with us. And now in our modern day, we do have God with us. Christ has come and atoned in a way that covers sins and can move us towards holiness in a way that's more than just the teachings and instructions, but this vibrant, bright inward change. Right, a lot of us in the Protestant world, you'll know of sanctification is probably the term you're most familiar with, or maybe you've never heard that term, in which case I recommend doing research on sanctification. Maybe you'll hear it as Christian maturity, as holiness, as any number of variety of terms. But that is what it means for God to dwell with his people, is to move them towards sanctification, is to move them towards his holiness, to where they can be in a place where they can have the presence of God amidst them. And that is such a beautiful thought and idea. And there's so many things that come with that. The assurance of the forgiveness of sins, the assurance of God's blessing, of his protection. It's just such a beautiful thing. I could go on for hours about this, so I'm going to stop myself now before I do that. You guys have a wonderful day. God bless, and thank you for going through Wisdom of Solomon. And I will see you guys in whatever series we're going to be starting after this. Amen.